He's going to give us a little background on his history in the industry, and then we're going to get started talking about Mr. Bolton.
My name is Charles Potts, and I came to work with the Florida Department of Transportation. It was actually the road department at that time in 1968 in the materials office in Gainesville. And my first job there was the state's bituminous research engineer. In 1970, took over the asphalt lab and all the responsibilities for asphalt mix design and research and all for the state of Florida. And in 1980, became state materials and research engineer. I left the DOT in 1985, and at that time I was director of construction for the DOT. When I left in 1985, I went to work for APAC Incorporated, Ashland, or actually Ashland Incorporated, and the construction group APAC. In 1992, I became senior vice president of Ashland Incorporated and president of APAC Incorporated. In 2003, I retired from Ashland and was CEO of Heritage Construction and Materials till 2012, and at that time I became chairman of the board of Heritage Construction and Materials Group, which is the same position I hold today.
Yeah, my name is Dave Hay. I retired after 35 years as executive vice president with Macasphalt. Macasphalt was purchased by Ashland Oil in April of '71. At that time, I was working on a pump storage reservoir in Warren, Pennsylvania, paving the inside of a reservoir for Warren Brothers, and was called and was transferred back down, or transferred to Florida, and got down here in early July of '71. A couple of weeks later, I met Mr. Bolton. Now, I had a preconceived idea of what Mr. Bolton might look like because the gentleman that we worked with up in Pennsylvania had been an ex-paving contractor, had sold his company. He was a man about 5'7", 5'8", probably weighed 200 pounds. He was in his 60s. Well, I walked into the room where he was, and boy, was I out in left field. Here's a man about 6'5" and 200 some pounds, and a man, a real man. Anyway, that was the first time I met Pat, and he was very congenial, and we talked a little bit and what have you.
In the time I came to Florida, I was 22 years old when I went to work in the materials lab and doing research statewide in asphalt. And at that time, the Asphalt Contractors Association was in transition from their director to new director, who was Carol Lance. And I got to know pretty quickly that Pat Bolton was the leading asphalt paving contractor in the state of Florida at that time. And I also found out that, not only was Pat a really good asphalt contractor, he had come to Macasphalt originally from the state of South Carolina, and he was a materials engineer. And he was as knowledgeable as you'll find it in the country. And in my opinion, one of the best asphalt paving contractors that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. And he was not only was he knowledgeable, he was a good listener. And when I would write up specification changes or proposed mix design changes, I'd get Pat to look at them and give me his thoughts, not to dictate what was being done, and he never did that. But he would give me good advice, and I needed his support when you go to the industry to make changes of that type. You need to have a few positive voices in the room, and Pat was certainly served that for me.
Anyway, Carol, I believe, came up with the idea, got with the DOT and says, you know, let's recognize the quality of work that some of our contractors are doing. And I think that's where it started. And okay, so we got the roads and streets, we got the research, and what our supreme award, who are we going to name it after? And I just said, well, Pat Bolton. He was Mr. Asphalt of Florida. And I believe that's probably how it came about.
Well, to me, your Pat represented the highest level of quality of asphalt pavements during the era that I was working with Pat and knew him. And I would think that the company or the individuals who won that award were carrying on that same tradition of the highest level of quality for flexible pavement.
Anyway, the first pavement awards were presented in Panama City in a Holiday Inn. They went to the Pat Bolton Award, and we didn't win. And Pat says, that's a heck of a note. They will name an award after me, and my company doesn't even win the thing. Back then, and I don't know what the criteria is today, but I think it was 25,000 tons of asphalt to qualify for the Pat Bolton Award. Back then, 25,000 ton jobs were few and far between, and we hadn't had any. And that's the reason we didn't have a chance to win the Pat Bolton Award. So, I mean, he came because of the award, and then he was disappointed because we didn't win it. Eventually we did, and I remember that time very well, because we not only won the Pat Bolton Award, but we won the other two awards too. I think we were the only company ever to do that. Yep.
What is that?
That's Bill Alone and myself and Don Solly. Yep.
What were y'all receiving right there?
Pat Bolton Award, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the way Bill, we knew we were going to win the awards, and so Posa went up and got one, Pam went up and got one, and then,
oh really?
Yeah, and then because somebody says, well, how come you're not going up? And I didn't say anything, and then Bill said, when it read us, and both of us walked up. Yeah.
Big dogs winning.
I about big dogs, but anyway,
Yeah.
it's a supreme award. It's the one that everybody wants to win, and you have to have good people, and to win that thing, it's just extremely prestigious, at least to those in the industry.
Awards are usually named for people that have a special meaning to the people who supported and brought them forward, and usually it's because people had great respect for them. They epitomized some aspect of that particular industry. And when you look at a person like Pat Bolton, to get an award that was named for Pat, you're represented the best of the best in Florida at that time.
Pat Bolton was extremely innovative. He had his own fabrication shop, and he would come up with ideas, and his crews would build whatever he wanted to make an asphalt plant either more efficient or more movable or whatever it might be. Yeah. One other thing I would like to say about Pat, he put together an extremely bunch of good people. His vice presidents were Bill Alone and Keith Richardson. Both of those are past presidents of the asphalt contractors. Bill Alone eventually became the president of Macasphalt, and Keith became the president of the Sarasota division. The people he had in the field were just outstanding, and he just had a legacy that's hard to believe. And I tell you this, I'm damn proud to have been part of it. One, I think, his innovation and the quality of work and the quality of people he had. But I believe establishing the Asphalt Contractors Association, working with Carol and hiring Carol Lance, and getting that established, I think, was probably the best thing he could have done for the industry.
When you get an award that's named for a particular individual, you're getting an award for somebody that had created a legacy and a reputation of their own, and that the industry respected enough to name that award for them. And it has a very special, specific value. It also originally, when people get that, it's an award that people aspire to be like that person. You don't name it for somebody that you don't want to be like. I mean, what the heck? And I remember a conversation I had with Pat. We were talking about this, and to determine whether or not you support quality, you have to ask yourself a question: is how good does it have to be for me to get them to take it? Or how good does it have to be till I'm satisfied with it? And as a contractor, you know what quality is. And if you fall in the category that how good does it have to be till I'm satisfied with it, then you fall in the category of the conversation I had with Pat. I mean, that's basically very simple. It's not, there's no magic to it.